Today's episode of The Overwhelmed Brain is brought to you by Storyworth for a very cool, very unique gift for the holidays and $20 off that gift when you subscribe. Visit storyworth.com/brain.
Are you annoyed by affirmations? Are you tired of that same old, rehashed personal growth advice that all seems to boil down to, think positively and all your problems will go away? If affirmations feel like lies and positive thinking feels like denial, then I want you to get ready. The Overwhelmed Brain is here to help you create the life you want now.
Hello and welcome to The Overwhelmed Brain. My name is Paul Coliani. I'm a personal empowerment coach. This is a show where I help you tackle life's toughest challenges. I want to help you increase your emotional intelligence, strengthen your self-worth and self-esteem, and empower you so that you can make decisions that are right for you. Everything I talk about on this show is my personal opinion and is meant for informational and educational purposes only. Always consult a medical or psychological professional before making any changes that could affect your physical or mental health. I mean, wouldn't that be great to be able to make the right decisions for you? I think that's the epitome of living life today, is being able to make decisions that work, that are right, that feel good, that are in your best interest and the best interest of everyone else around you. I love that philosophy of being able to go through life making decisions that are in your best interest, in your highest interest, and the best interest of those around you as well. We're going to talk about an email that I received today from someone who's taking care of someone else. Not in the, I need you to take care of me because I need a nanny or a nurse or anything like that, but in a way of, I need you to take care of me because I am making decisions about my life that are affecting you, affecting me, and I really don't care how you feel about it, but you need to take care of me because I support you in certain ways. I'm being a little vague, but there is that aspect of it. And yes, it has to do with a codependent relationship where someone feels obligated, feels like they have to take care of someone because they're just so darn compassionate. And we really need to address the word compassion today, I think, because compassion doesn't mean I'm going to give up my life for you so you can be happy and I can be in this wasteland of negative emotion. That's not what compassion is. That's sacrifice. When you sacrifice yourself for someone else, that's your choice, of course, but don't expect to be in the happiest state that you can find. In fact, expect to be miserable. I'm not saying you have to be miserable, and I'm not saying that this is the case with every single relationship or situation, but I want you to be aware that compassion does not mean sacrifice. So just kind of have that as the frame for this episode as we go into it. But like I was saying, being able to make the right decisions for you and for other people means that you walk through life making decisions that work for you, even if other people don't like it. I think that's important. I think it's important to understand that the decisions you want to make for you aren't going to be liked by some people. They're not going to be liked by some people. And I want you to know that's okay. It took me a long time. It took me a long time to realize that I could make decisions for myself, and it was okay that someone else didn't like it. This does kind of look at the people-pleasing aspect that some people fall into. Not everyone falls under this, but some people, like myself, for many years, have fallen under the people-pleasing category, that I just wanted to make decisions to keep the peace. I wanted to make decisions and take action and do behavior in my life to keep the peace. As long as they're happy, then I'll be happy. I've talked about people pleasing a lot, so I'm not going to get too much into it today, but you can look it up in other episodes. But by the time I learned that I was married and my wife was pretty much asking me, where the hell are you? Where are you? What she meant was, what is your opinion? What do you want? What do you want out of this? Even if you disagree with me, tell me. Even if you know I'll be angry or I'll yell at you, tell me. She didn't say those words, but that's pretty much the gist that I got, is that she didn't want me to placate. She didn't want me to please her. I mean, you know what I mean. She didn't want me to come up with opinions that were based on her reactions. That's so vital to understand. Don't base your opinions on someone else's reactions. That's a hard habit to break. I mean, when I was doing it, it was very hard because my brain was wired that way. I conditioned it for so long to base it on someone else's responses that I thought it was perfectly normal. I thought it was the right way to think. I thought it was noble, moral, ethical. I thought that was the way you're supposed to behave in life, is when you have a thought, you base it on someone else's response or reaction, because you don't want to stir the pot. You don't want to make any waves. You don't want to cause any problems. And of course, that comes from a dysfunctional upbringing. When I was a child in a home with an abusive alcoholic, you definitely didn't want to cause any waves. So you are programmed. I mean, you pretty much self-programmed, because you learn how to survive in this environment, and you learn ways to survive. And one of those ways could be that you make sure that you please someone else so that you don't get hurt or even killed in your mind. I mean, you might think this way: I don't want to get killed. And it could be true. You may not want to get killed, so how do you avoid that? You come up with behaviors that don't lead to someone else hurting you. And those behaviors, I mean, they're so difficult to take into the real world, because you become someone that, quite frankly, other people sometimes can't stand to be around. That's I'm just laying it out there. And I was one of those people that some people couldn't stand to be around. Other people loved it. Other people love that kind of people-pleasing, quote, compassionate. Remember that word, compassion. I thought I was being very compassionate toward people by sacrificing my time, by giving them more of me than I had, by giving them when I'm already in deficit, giving to them what I couldn't give to myself, or what I chose not to give to myself, because I thought that was the way you're supposed to do it. And what happens is you develop relationships that are they're very bipolar, actually. You have some relationships where people can't stand to be around you because you're just so giving. I mean, it sounds opposite of what you'd think, but some people can't stand to be around such giving people, and they're always giving. Oh, let me take that for you. Oh, let me pick that up for you. Oh, let me drive you to the store. You don't have to drive. All of these favors and requests, it can get sickening to some people. Again, I'm just laying it out there. I'm not trying to make any judgment calls here, but this is what happens around people that are just so, I don't want to say they're nice, because they're nice. These people are very nice. They're very giving. And you also get the feeling that they do nothing for themselves and everything they do is for you. And then you're put into a position where you feel guilty for saying no. And maybe it's not the best way to put it. Like someone who has a lot of people-pleasing characteristics, they might say, oh, let me pick that up for you. That looks heavy. Or let me help you, take all those books off the bookshelf and put them in the box and move them upstairs with you. And you might say, no, I got it. I'm fine. This is only a couple boxes. No, let me do it. They say, no, it's my pleasure. I'll be happy to do it. And you say, no, thanks. And they go, oh, come on, just let me do it. You know it's heavy. I'll be happy to take care of it. They approach you in a very nice, accommodating way. The problem is they're not listening to your boundary statements. You're saying, no, thanks, and that's all you should have to say. No, thanks. And you might say, no, I'm fine. And at that point, the person with these people-pleasing characteristics should go, oh, okay, no problem. If you need my help, I'll be over here. That would be a healthy response. So this is where I'm saying that they are being nice, but they're not necessarily paying attention to your boundaries. And that's where the codependence starts kicking in, where they must help in order to feel fulfilled. They must help so that they know that you like them, so that they know that you accept them. There are people out there that feel like they need to do something for you in order for you to feel like they are a part of your clan or tribe or family. And these people, again, they can be quite hard to be around. I've known marriages that have broken up because the man was getting so sick of being doted on all the time. Again, this sounds so opposite. I know there are people listening right now that love to dote on their mate, on their partner, that love to please their partner, that would do anything for their partner. And for some marriages, they can't understand why their partner gets so upset with them when they do everything for them. So there's a very important point that I want to make. If you are with someone or you are yourself that person that likes to continuously try to help, continuously try to please someone else, continuously try to make someone else's life easier, because that's probably what it feels like. I want to make their life easier. I want to do something good for them all the time. I'm always there if they need me. You feel like you're helping. When they're getting upset a lot and they don't seem very receptive, or they get angry at the things that you do, start to look inward and try to figure out, okay, am I trying to help so that I'll be accepted by them, so that they'll be happy, even though that's a noble cause? But do I do it almost to my own deficit, or fully to my own deficit, because it's so tiring, it's so draining? Because this is the gray area, is that it can be fulfilling for some people to help others. It makes them feel good inside. But the problem is the source of that feeling good, when it comes from outside of you because you helped someone else and you rely on that source to feel good, and you get rejected, then suddenly you're in a bad place. This is where the bipolarity kicks in, is that you can be ecstatic when someone is receptive and you feel good because you help them feel this happy state. And because they feel happy, you feel happy, you're fulfilled. That can be one end of the bipolar spectrum. I'm not talking about bipolar disorder or anything. I'm just saying the bipolarity, the polarity of opposite extremes sometimes. They can be very happy and receptive. And on the other end of that, the opposite extreme, they can be upset. They can be very angry. They may not like you always trying to do something for them. And so you're going to have those. I've seen those different types of relationships where one couple will be very happy and it works, and the dysfunctions are kind of complementary. In fact, you might not even call them dysfunctions at that point because they're so functional in that relationship. There are compatible people where you might have a people pleaser and you might have a receptive person that get along very well. That can happen. I don't see it too often. Let me think. I don't think I've ever seen it. I know it can happen though, because there are certain personality types. I think I might have seen it once, but it's rare. It's rare to have someone who's accommodating and giving and loving and gives so much of themselves to a deficit, almost sacrifice, like I was saying. And the other person is so receptive and loves the doting and the caring and the all of that. And because they're so happy, it fulfills the other person and it doesn't create any tension in the relationship. That can work. It is rare, but it can work. And I don't believe there are too many people that have that perfect compatibility. But the opposite extreme is more common, where you have the giving, caring, kind, people-pleasing person that is with someone that likes it at first, because this is what usually happens. They like the people-pleasing. They like the caring. They like the doting. They like everything about it at first, because it feels really good to be waited on hand and foot. But after a while, the person loses their sense of purpose in individuality. And that's one of my most important points in this segment, is that when you give too much, even though it feels like that's the right thing to do, someone can lose their sense of purpose and individuality. They can lose the meaning of their life. It may sound a little odd, but think about it. If you didn't have to do much for yourself at all, what would you do? I mean, okay, I'm hungry. I'm going to make myself something. Oh, no, I'll get something to eat. No, you sit there. I'll get something to eat. Oh, okay, I'll just sit at the table and read my book. Oh, hold on, let me flip the pages for you. I'm being extreme. I'm exaggerating. But think about it. You lose your sense of autonomy. You lose your sense of independence. You feel like if that other person isn't there, that maybe you don't really have much function at all. You're just a brain and a body sitting down, waiting for things to happen to you. And as human beings, we want to do things. We want to feel, most of us want to feel productive. We want to feel progressive. We want to feel resourceful. We want to feel helpful. We want to feel like we matter. We want to feel like a contributor in society, in the world. Most of us feel this way. It's kind of how we're hardwired. And when someone takes that stuff away from us, here, let me do that for you. Here, let me get this. Here, let me move that. Then we start to lose some of that independent feeling, that feeling of purpose. It's almost as if all of us have a little bit of that people pleaser in us, and we do like to do things for other people. We also like to do things for ourselves, and that we all get something from it. So when someone takes that away from us, let's just say that you're a people pleaser in a relationship with me, who also has some of that people pleasing, and you do everything for me, suddenly I have no way to give back. I have no way to please you because everything's done for me. So there's no surprises anymore. There's no feeling of the unknown. If you know everything that's going to happen all the time and you take that away, where's the spice in life? Sure, it's nice. It'd be great to have certainty all the time, but what about when you're not certain? That is like watching a movie. If you don't know the end of the movie and you watch it through not knowing what's going to happen next, you have that feeling of uncertainty and you're not sure what's going to happen, and then you're pleasantly surprised about things that, or unpleasantly surprised about things that happen. You get this feeling of newness because the brain loves novelty. The brain loves new, novel things. And when there is uncertainty, the brain can continue to grow and learn new things and new patterns so that it doesn't get into a rut. Because that's what happens is that when someone does everything for us or a lot of things for us and we expect it and we know it, it becomes a pattern, then we put ourselves into a rut. It's an emotional rut. It's a mind rut. And this has happened in my own relationship. When I first started dating my girlfriend, I was kind of a people pleaser. I would want to do things for her. I want to show her that, hey, I'm a nice guy to live with. I'm a nice guy to be in a relationship with. I wanted to show her all these things about me. So what I would do is go a little bit over the top. Hey, let me get that for you. Hey, let me make breakfast for you. Hey, let me do this. Hey, let me do that. And I noticed as our relationship was developing that it frustrated her a little bit. And I didn't understand. Like, why would that frustrate her? Why would anyone be upset about that? That doesn't make any sense to me. And I asked her, what's wrong? Why don't you like that? She goes, I don't need everything handed to me. And we talked about it a little bit. And of course, I'd already learned about people pleasing, and I didn't realize I was still doing it to that extent because I still admit that I'm a little bit of a people pleaser here and there. But now I'm very conscious of it. And I have to ask myself questions like, okay, why am I doing this for this person? Is it so that they'll like me? Is it my true, honest feelings? Is it within my own values? I want to make sure that I'm doing things that are in my best and highest interest, and also, noble and moral and all this other stuff, so that I can avoid stress and keep the peace in my environment and the people I'm with, but at the same time not causing myself to go into any type of emotional deficit. So that's what my girlfriend felt like. She felt like she was going into an emotional deficit because I was taking care of things that took away from her sense of purpose and individuality and meaningfulness. And we had a good talk, and it made perfect sense. And it exposed things in me that I had to be willing to admit were still in there. Because these programs, they keep running and they keep running until you expose them, until you're very conscious of them, so that you can change them, so you can change your behavior. And again, it's not hard. But I see this stuff in relationships and the people I coach and the people I hear from all the time. And in the next segment, I'm going to read you an email from someone in a relationship where she is, quote, compassionate. And she really wants to help her husband, and she feels obligation, and at the same time, she's very unhappy. So there are some things we're going to talk about there, and hopefully you get something from it. If you know someone like this, if you are like this, if your partner is like this, it's a very important topic, because sometimes we give too much. Sometimes we give to the point of sacrifice, and we call it love, and we call it compassion. and we call it being kind and generous. There's a point where it's no longer generous and it's just leaking oil. Let me explain that. Leaking oil in the sense of if your car loses enough oil, your engine's going to seize. It's just going to stop running. So imagine you're giving and giving and giving. Pretty soon you have nothing left to give and you still give more, and then your engine seizes and you just can't stand it. I mean, that's what happens. You'll reach a breakdown point. And if you don't reach that breakdown point, you keep yourself insanely miserable because you never reach the breakdown and you never choose to go the opposite direction and honor yourself, taking care of yourself, telling yourself, you know what, I'm going to do this for me today. I'm not going to wait on this person hand and foot. I'm not going to please this person. I'm not going to do what this person tells me to do because I'm pretty much sick and tired of being in that position. So like I said, there are things we're going to talk about. We'll be right back, and we'll get into this a little bit more after this. So every now and then I come on the air and I tell you about Storyworth. And I want to tell you, this is the holidays. Christmas is coming up. I want you to think about this as a great gift idea. Storyworth is a company that takes someone's stories throughout their life and bound them into a beautiful keepsake book. And how they do it is the person you purchase it for will get a weekly email that asks them questions. It's things that you really don't think to ask because you probably know these people so well that you never think about, asking a question like, what was your favorite movie in the 80s? And who were you with when you saw that movie? These questions that are probably very typical when we're talking with our friends and we say, oh yeah, I remember that movie. I was with, so-and-so and we had a great time. And then after we went to a restaurant, and they'll have this whole story that surrounds that memory. And I love what Storyworth does is that it takes these memories that we recall but never really write down. I have 1,000 memories that I recall all the time, and I don't write them down. I just remember them. And sometimes I remember them a little differently. Sometimes the memories start fading over time, and I start losing some details. And I want to take these memories and put them somewhere. I have a podcast, so that's kind of helpful. But not everyone does podcasting. So this is where Storyworth comes in and giving this as a gift to someone. So we can take these times that the person says, oh, I remember that, and memorialize those stories into a book they can always have access to so that as time goes by, they can share it with their family, they can share it with their friends, with their loved ones, and the book becomes so many topics of conversation. It's just mind-blowing. I remember my sister. I gifted this to my sister last year, and she's about 75% of the way through right now. And she loves these questions that come up because, again, they're just not questions you often hear. Like, how do you prefer to travel? Or do you have any funny or embarrassing Thanksgiving memories? I mean, that was pretty recent at the time of this recording. What are the simple pleasures in life that you enjoy? Did you have a car in college? What is your favorite poem? What is one thing you wish you'd known before you became a parent? And there's hundreds or probably thousands of questions that you'll get week after week. And of course, you can make your own questions too. You don't have to go by the question they give you. But that's what's great about this is that you'll be creating a centerpiece for your coffee table, for your bookshelf, so that you can take this out and talk about it with the people that you're probably writing about. Like I remember a few months ago, my sister was answering these questions and she told me about this story that I didn't even remember. So to have this accessible to me as her brother, it felt really special. It made me feel closer to her. It made me feel more connected. And I want you to have that connecting feeling too. Visit storyworth.com/brain so you can get $20 off your subscription. And each week, Storyworth sends your storyteller a question that you've never thought to ask. They write a story each week, and at the end of 1 year, they get all of their stories bound into a beautiful keepsake book. They can upload pictures, they can have a long story or a very short story. I remember some of my sisters were like 2 sentences long, and other stories were like 3 paragraphs long, and some were longer than that. This is a very affordable, very unique gift. And this is the time of year for gift giving. And of course, there's always birthdays and other times to celebrate. Marriages and wedding anniversaries. There's so many occasions that this gift would be perfect for. I want you to think about getting it for a loved one, especially one who enjoys telling stories. I'm gifting another one this year. I think it's going to go to my girlfriend's dad. I'm going to ask his wife if it would be ideal for him, but I think he might like it. So do this. Go to storyworth.com/brain. When you go to that link, you'll get $20 off when you subscribe. That's storyworth.com/brain. I think you'll agree with me. It's probably the most unique gift that keeps on giving throughout the year. All right, welcome back. We're talking about compassion and giving and kindness and caring, morality, ethics, everything rolled into one. When you show up as the person that you think you should be, and someone else in your life doesn't show up as the person that is also equally reciprocative, if that's a word, and they want to contribute to your relationship in an equal manner, or at least, do the best they can, then that can work out. You can have a complementary relationship. However, when you are kind and compassionate and caring and all this other good stuff, and you meet someone who's a taker, now you're in a relationship that is all about you diminishing yourself emotionally, physically, mentally, sometimes financially. You are on the draining end of the relationship while the other person gets all the rewards. And I don't like this type of relationship. I'm going to be honest with you. I think this is one of the worst types of relationships where someone does everything and the other person does seemingly nothing. But they'll say what they do as being supportive. For example, this next email that I'm going to read, I'm going to condense it a little bit and try to protect the privacy of the person who wrote it, so I won't give you too many details. But let me just read this, and then this is a tough one. This is probably one of the toughest emails that I've received, where I looked at it and I had to look online. I had to ask some other professionals exactly what to do in this type of situation, because I'm sort of at a loss, at least with one aspect of the email. But at the same time, I do have some answers, or at least my own opinions about what I would do if I were in this situation. So it's more personal advice than professional advice, or at least part of this, but maybe it'll help you if you're in this situation, and I certainly hope it helps the person who wrote this email. I'm going to call her Barbara. Barbara says, "Hi, Paul. What do you do when your partner is a veteran with severe PTSD and has had a terribly abusive upbringing who wholly relies on you for everything? I'm at the beginning of a relationship. I thought I found my soulmate, but now I'm backed into a corner of caregiving, not receiving anything I need as a partner, constantly giving, putting myself last, and being emotionally and mentally manipulated and physically neglected. I left work a while back to take care of him, and I generally hate my life. Anytime I show discomfort with our situation, he always brings up how he financially supports me, and I should count myself lucky. I feel trapped. My fiancé constantly reminds me of how I saved his life. Without me, he has nothing to live for, and would essentially commit suicide if I leave." And that's what I'm talking about. That's the tough part, when someone threatens to commit suicide if you leave the relationship. We're going to go over that. She goes on to say, "I tried leaving about a year ago, but he begged me to stay, and even though I knew I'd regret it, I stayed. I just have so much compassion for him. I feel terrible for his situation, but it has had a massively negative impact on my mental health and life. My depression and anxiety has worsened, and now I'm dealing with anger issues as well. I want to help him get better, but how much more abuse is it going to take? I'm scared to leave now because I'm truly worried I'd be responsible for his death or any negative reaction that he may have, whether it's hurting himself or others. When he rages at me, he becomes rude, aggressive, and hurtful. I've used your techniques to try and talk to him calmly about the situation, but he always gets angrier and throws verbal daggers at me. I suggested that we wait for our emotions to cool down before we discuss the situation that triggered him into a rage, but he says he needs to deal with it then. How can I, in those moments, not get defensive and make him feel better, even though I am feeling verbally assaulted? He blames me for 100% of his triggers and rages. which really hurts because of everything I do for him. I do all the cooking, cleaning, grocery shopping, errands, phone calls, all the house repairs, and I don't even know how to do house repairs. I do everything. In the years we've been together, he hasn't made a single meal. He leaves his clothes and towels on the floor for me to pick up and will allow the garbage to overflow until I take it out. Because I left work for him and moved in, I have no savings, no vehicle, and no assets. Even if I wanted to leave, I couldn't support myself. He often mentions me getting a job to add to our income, but whenever I start applying or interviewing, he makes a big fuss about needing me home. I love him, but I hate his PTSD. I never knew him before he got the PTSD, and I didn't truly know what I was getting into until after I agreed to marry him a few months into the relationship. Now I'm stuck. How do I survive a relationship like this? What do I do? I am really, truly trying to help him heal his PTSD and heal our relationship and heal myself. I just feel so insignificant and underappreciated. Sometimes I want to disappear. Please, please help. I'm at my wit's end. Okay, Barbara, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm going to tell you my opinions, my thoughts on this. I'm not going to be very easy on you. I'm saying that out of love and respect for you and out of caring for your future and for his future too. And what I'm going to ask you first and foremost, I know you can't answer here, but let's answer in your mind. Are you a trained psychotherapist? Because if you're not, then why the heck do you keep saying that you have to heal him? Throughout your entire email, you are saying, how do I heal him? How do I help him? How do I make him feel better? Unless you're a trained psychotherapist that's signed into this relationship to be his personal psychotherapist, you need to let that go. Again, I'm saying all of this out of love and respect for you. It's tough love, but I want you to really hear this message. If you're not a trained psychologist or psychotherapist or psychiatrist, and you are not his personal counselor or therapist, you need to let go of trying to help him. You need to let that go. You can't help anyone that doesn't help himself. You can't do it. It's impossible. You can't do it. I've tried. I've tried. You cannot do it. So, step one, let go of any idea that you are there to help him through his sordid past. That is not your job. Your job is to show up as an individual with your own needs, your own desires, your own problems, and deal with your own problems in your way and bring the best version of you into the relationship that you can. And once you bring that best version of you into the relationship, the other person is supposed to do the same thing. So he needs to bring the best version of himself into the relationship. But what you are, or sorry to say this, what you have allowed him to do is make you his slave. I feel awful telling you this, but this is what's happening. You are allowing this in so many ways, him making you his slave. Now, I know there are people listening right now that are saying, yes, but she has no financial support. She can't leave. I'm here to say that, yes, you can. You can leave. You can sleep in someone's second bedroom. You can sleep on the street. That's dumb advice. I'm not telling you to do this. Like I said, part of this is my personal opinion. This is not my professional opinion right now. But I tell you what, you're either someone's servant and personal psychotherapist, or you're in a relationship with them. And right now, you're not in a relationship. You're in a control situation. You're in what's called a power over model. He has power over you, and let me throw this at you, and it's not going to sound very pleasant, not that any of this has, but I'm going to say this right now. He will never, ever change. Ever. What you're dealing with now will be the way it is, if not worse, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now. He will never change. How can I predict that? How do I know? What if you're a miracle worker? What if you can heal emotional wounds from 20 years ago? I don't know that. What I'm telling you now is that you have to accept that this is the way your life is going to be from this point on. This is not easy. This is not easy for me to say, probably not easy for you to hear. But you have to accept that. If you don't accept that, then you will continue along the path that you're on now, trying to help, trying to heal, trying to figure out what you can do differently. You can do nothing differently that will change him. You can only do something differently that will start to improve you and change you and heal you. So we're dealing with someone who has control over you, and you who are mistaking sacrifice, servitude, and emotional imprisonment, I mean, that's kind of a stretch, but probably feels right, with caring and compassion and kindness. You're mistaking these terms. Compassion isn't about sacrifice. Compassion is when you have compassion for yourself in abundance so that you can give compassion to someone else. You have no compassion for yourself. That's a terrible thing for me to say because you probably have a lot of compassion for yourself. But I want you to think about how you show that compassion to yourself. How do you show compassion for yourself? Because I have a feeling you're missing an ingredient. That ingredient is personal boundaries. Another ingredient might be values. You might have taken a personal assessment of what your values are in a relationship, but you're not honoring them. Because as soon as he does something that's against your values, what do? Are you showing compassion for yourself in that moment? I know this is difficult because you're telling me, but I have nowhere to go. And I feel so bad for him because he's hurting. Let me first say this. Listen to every single episode I've ever created. I know that's a big order, but listen to every single one of them, and you'll understand right now that you are in a very emotionally abusive situation. Very. Because anyone that tells you that they're going to commit suicide if you leave, total control. They have total control over you. They have total control over the people that are the most kind and caring people. So your compassion works against you with people like this. They know it's going to make you feel guilty if they say that. And I'm here to tell you, this is another personal opinion because this does require psychiatric evaluation for him and maybe you, but my personal opinion and my personal understanding of those who threaten suicide if the other person leaves is that they rarely do it. It does happen. It does happen. You could leave and he could do it, or at least attempt to do it. But from my understanding, the majority of the time is that it doesn't happen. So we know that he's using this as a threat to make you stay. So my first question that I think you should ask him is, do you want me to stay because of your love and caring, or do you want me to stay because of your threats? I think that's a very good first question. My personal opinion is that he's saying this because he knows that you'll feel bad enough to stay. And this is classic emotional abuse. This is where someone paints you in a corner so that you have no choice but to do exactly what they say. And the reason I told you that he will never, ever change, I want you to be pushed to the limit. I want you to get to the point where you can't take it anymore, because the brain does something funny when you reach that point. It's the point of breakdown. It's the point where you go, I can't take this anymore. I don't care. I really need you to get to that point. I don't care anymore, because you're going to run out of energy. It's going to happen anyway. However, the length of time that it happens varies from person to person. It took my mom 40 plus years. She hated her relationship from year one. She was in a relationship with my stepfather for over 40 years. And she felt it probably exactly as you do now. But she felt it for that long. And if I went back in time and said, hey, you know, that relationship that you're in, he's never going to change. Every time you think that there is some hope, it'll be squashed. And if I could convince her of that, she might have a different thought. I don't know. She also might have as much fear as you do of leaving the relationship. Right now, you're setting yourself up to fail. And he knows, here's the thing, he knows that if you got a job, that you might become a little bit financially independent, which scares the hell out of him. Because if you become financially independent, he's going to realize that it'll be a lot easier for you to leave. In my opinion, I believe it is vital that you get a job. It is vital that you start doing things for yourself and stop focusing so much time and energy on trying to heal him or help him or think that you can do any of this. Unless you're a trained psychotherapist or a psychologist or counselor in some way. But even if you are, it usually works against you, because I tell you what, as a coach in my own relationship, If I put on my coach hat in my relationship, it goes south pretty quick. So I recommend you don't do that, even if you are trained as that. But from what you've told me, I don't think you are. So I'm just going to assume that you're not. Not that you're not capable of it, but you never mentioned it, so we'll just go with that. But I highly recommend, here's the thing. Again, this is all tough love. This is out of respect and wanting you to have the best life possible. So this is my personal opinion. I'm not telling you to say, Paul told me to do this, so I'm going to do it. But I'm going to give you my opinion as if I was the only person that you should trust and listen to. And that could be very bad advice. I hope I'm not the only person that you trust and listen to. Or I don't even know if you trust me, but let me give it to you this way. Get a job. Get a job. This is going to help you start to have some sort of meaning and purpose in your life. This is going to help you get away from the emotional abuse and from what it sounds like physical neglect and other things that are going on. This is your first step. You tell the story to anyone else, all they're going to say is, get out of there. Get the heck out of there. You should dump him. Get out of there. I don't care what it takes. That's hard to do in this type of relationship because a codependence develops and you have to deal with the guilt, which is tough because guilt comes up in people that think they can help other people. But what it does is create a vicious cycle of repeated guilt that you can't get out of until you're out of the relationship or you go through some major healing. But usually when you go through some major healing, you typically tend to get away from the toxic people that don't want to help themselves. Because he doesn't want to help himself. And again, I'm going to repeat, he's never going to change. So I need you to imagine what your life is going to be like in 5, 10, 20 years, knowing that he will never change and probably get worse. Just know it. Just fully accept that. Because it sounds like you need to reach the breakdown point. Because if you haven't left by now, or gave him the talking to that he needs, like, you know what? I'm sick of being pushed around. I'm sick of you not doing anything to lift a finger around here. I'm sick of it. You need to get to that point. I mean, think of someone you love that is in some sort of abusive relationship. Let's just say that you two had coffee. Picture a sister, a brother, a mom, a dad, or even a child, and you two have coffee one day, and they're wearing these big glasses, and you tell them to take the glasses off and you notice a big bruise on their eye, like they get punched in the face, and you know it's from the relationship. What would you tell that person? What would you say to that person? Because the way you feel about that person and that relationship needs to be the way you feel about yourself. Has to be. You need to look at this relationship as if you stepped outside yourself and you needed to give yourself advice on what to do next. Now, what you're dealing with is a lot of guilt. And the guilt comes from the idea that he might kill himself or hurt himself. So here's how I would handle this. This is the part where I'm not qualified to answer the question. So I'm going to give you a personal opinion, more personal opinions here. If this was happening to me, if I was in a relationship and my girlfriend says, if you leave me, I'll kill myself. You saved my life and everything. I rely on you for everything. And if you're not here, I'm nothing without you. It's a huge threat, playing on my emotions, playing on my compassion, playing on the fact that I know I'll feel guilty if it's true. So she uses that, and suddenly I'm in a position of, what do I do? I don't want her to kill herself. What do I do? First thing that comes to mind is I validate the threat. I say, if you're serious about killing yourself, I'm going to call the police right now. I'm not saying this is what you should do, but this is what I would do. If you're serious about killing yourself, I'm going to call help right now. I'll call the suicide hotline. I might call the suicide hotline first, but I'm going to call the police because I want them to know that I take their threat seriously. That'll show them that I'm not going to play around with that kind of threat. I'm going to treat it seriously. So if they go, no, you don't have to call. I would kill myself later if you broke up with me. I would still treat it as a serious threat. And say, if you ever say that to me again, if you ever threaten to kill yourself to cause me to stay, I'm going to call help so they can help you because you need a therapist. That's what I would tell my girlfriend. You need a therapist. Now, she might say, well, I do. And at that point, I might say, well, let's go. Let's set up an appointment. I want to help you. I love you. I want to help you. That might be what I respond. That might be the first thing I say. But the repeated threats, I'd kill myself or I'd hurt myself, That has to stop. And the only way to stop it is to provide accountability for what they're saying. So personally, I would say that I'm going to call someone to help because I don't want you to kill yourself. And if you're serious about killing yourself and I'm the only reason you stay alive, then you need more meaning and purpose in your life. You need help. If they say, no, I don't want help. I don't need help. Then you might respond, well, anyone who threatens to kill themselves if someone leaves them needs help. Now, this is from a place where I've learned to honor my boundaries and values and really can't stand when people play with my mind. So this is going to be tough for you. I realize this. I mean, it may be tough, but it's from the sound of your letter, you keep giving in and giving in and giving in. So your brain works in reverse as mine. This is why it might be a little difficult for me to answer your question. But if you get to the breakdown point, your brain's going to work like mine, or at least more like mine, where you just say, I don't care. I'm going to honor myself. You know what? Don't put that on me. That's on you, which is true. Don't put your life on me. I'm not here to help you stay alive. I'm here to be in a reciprocal relationship with someone who actually cares about themselves and cares about me. You can't possibly care about me if you use threats to try to make me feel guilty. You can't. It's just not there. That's not love and care. That's control and manipulation. That is an emotional prison that you're locking me in. I don't want to be in this emotional prison. If you want to kill yourself, fine, I'm leaving. My opinion. Because I know this threat could be real with some people. That could push them over the edge. I get it. That's why the accountability has to come in and say, well, I'm calling for help then. We need help because I can't live with someone whose only thought is if I leave, they're going to kill themselves. That's a problem. I don't want to be in a relationship with somebody like that. So that's where I go with the whole suicide thing. I highly recommend you talk to a suicide prevention crisis center, even a hospital emergency room, 911. Call someone that has more experience in this field because you need to find out what to do because you are definitely in an emotionally abusive situation and you have no idea what he's capable of. You also have to look beyond this and think, is he going to hurt me? Because someone who threatens to kill themselves, geez, that's just the worst thing you could tell someone. If you leave them, also might have the capability of hurting you if you leave them. I don't mean to throw that in there as something even more to think about. And I don't know the extent of his emotional wounding or what he's capable of, if he has a violent history or an aggressive past. But if that's in there, then all the more reason to plan ahead now, get a job, start creating some autonomy, start creating some independence so that if and when things start to go even worse, you have a way out. Because right now you're in a situation that will never change and only get worse. And I tell you what, if you really want to help him, and this is my final point, if you really want to help him, stop being his enabler. Again, love and respect. I want the best for you, and I don't mean to put you down for this, but you are enabling his bad behavior by continuing to do what he wants you to do. Now, what that means is when the trash piles up and he doesn't take it out, you need to hold him accountable, saying, you know what? I need you to start taking out the trash. I want you to do something around here. You may have to get a little belligerent. You may have to start making him accountable for doing all these things. Because where you are now, if you don't change, he's not going to change. If you don't leave, he's going to stay the same. If you don't take the first step into something, therapy yourself, your situation will never change. You say you're at your wit's end, you're not. Your wit's end is when you can't take it anymore. You're still taking it. You're still in that situation. Someone who can't take it anymore dumps the garbage in front of him and says, you empty it. I'm not giving you this advice. I'm saying redefine wit's end so that you don't stay stagnant, so that you don't stay stuck in a situation that you believe will never change or can't change. You can change this. Believe me, your brain will work differently when you reach that point of, I don't care what he thinks anymore. I am so sick of being treated like a slave. And I want you to remember what I said in the first segment, that this is not showing compassion. Compassion has to start in you for you. That's the only way you can give compassion to someone else, is that you have enough of abundant compassion for yourself that you can show it to someone else. If you're depressed and anxious and angry, then you're not showing yourself any compassion. Because if you were, you would work on that first. And that might mean foregoing his needs. Oh no, if I forego his needs, he might get upset with me. And I would ask you, how long are you going to allow him to control you? Because it's really what it comes down to. He is controlling you. You say you feel insignificant and underappreciated. You are. To him, you are insignificant, and he doesn't appreciate you. I might be wrong. I'm sure he has a warm heart underneath all of what's going on in him. I'm sure there's a lot of emotional wounding. I'm sure there's a lot of PTSD. I'm going to tell you what my wife told me before we got married and before we got divorced. But this is early on in the relationship. I was moderately depressed. And I just couldn't be happy around her. And she had no idea how to act around me. She had no idea what to do. She was a lot like you. She wanted to help me. She wanted to heal me. About 2 months into our relationship, she did the best thing anyone could have ever done for me. She threatened to leave. No, she was leaving. She didn't just threaten. She said, I'm going to leave. I don't know what to do for you. You're always depressed. I don't know what to do for you. And that was the best thing she could have done for me, because when she said that, it made me get off my butt. It made me realize that I can't depend on anyone else outside of me, and that if I wanted to get past this depression, I needed to do it myself. I needed to step up, figure it out, and make it happen. I needed to do it. That one thing. She said she was leaving. I said, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. This is too much for me to experience. I don't know what to do. And suddenly I had a shift in my brain. I realized, wow, I've been depending on someone else for my happiness. I've been depending on someone else to show up in a way that helps me where I don't have to do it myself. She was enabling me in some ways, but you are enabling him by continuing to allow him to be who he is, because you are who you are. And you showing up differently and learning personal boundaries about what you will and won't accept will show him what he has to live with from this point on. Because what you're going to do is poison the milk. You know that term. It's not a real term. Don't poison the milk. It's a term where you are making him realize that in order for this relationship to continue, that if he wants to be the same way he is now, he's going to get worse and worse results. He's going to find that you're not going to wait on him hand and foot. He's going to go hungry one night because you wanted him to cook dinner and he didn't. He's going to learn the hard way, and he's going to make it harder for you because he knows your triggers, he knows your buttons. But what you end up doing is honoring yourself more and more, showing that you have personal boundaries, showing that you deserve respect. Talk about a lack of self-compassion there. You deserve respect. So when he doesn't respect you, you speak up and say, no, I deserve respect. You're going to talk to me as if you actually want to marry me, not want to enslave me. I don't want to be your slave. I don't want to be your servant. This is supposed to be an equal relationship. And if you really love me, you'd care about me. You'd want me to be happy. But all you care about is making me feel guilty. That is not supporting my happiness. That is supporting your control. I know you're probably not ready to say any of these things, but I need you to get to the point where you care enough about yourself that you don't care about the consequences of honoring yourself. It's a tough place to get to. This is why I'm a little bit tough love today, but you have to care about yourself so much that you're willing to take risks for you. Because otherwise you're going to be unhappy and depressed like my mom was for most of her life, and she's now finally starting to enjoy life in her 70s. Don't sit on that. Understand that you're at a point where you have choices. You have options. You need to take steps toward those options, make things happen in your life, or nothing will ever change. This is all up to you. You have to do it. There's so many things I can say about the type of abuse he's doing to you. If you haven't gotten the MEAN workbook yet on emotional abuse, I highly recommend you do that. Go to loveandabuse.com and you'll have the assessment that tells you exactly what's going on in the relationship, and maybe it'll open your eyes. But your eyes already appear open from what I can tell. And because of that, when you're truly at your wit's end, you're going to reach that point where you just don't care about the consequences of honoring yourself. Because I need you to get to the point where, at least in this relationship and possibly going forward, that you care about yourself so damn much that you won't accept anything less than love, respect, and compassion for you. From him. not just from you, but from Him. When you won't accept anything less than that, you act differently. So this is all I have for you, Barbara. I know this is probably a lot to hear, and a lot of it is not easy to do. It may not be in your makeup, it may not be in your character, it may not be in your personality, but you can shift. You can shift when you are truly at your wit's end. You can do it. I know you can. Thank you so much for writing, and I hope this helps. We'll be right back, and I'll give you my final words after this. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Overwhelmed Brain. I want to thank Storyworth. Get the most unique gift that keeps on giving throughout the entire year. Visit storyworth.com/brain, and you'll get $20 off when you subscribe. Get it before Christmas. And I want to thank Chris for his patron membership. He just joined, and I appreciate you, Chris. Thank you so much. And for those of you that are in the patron program, you are helping to support this show, continuing its journey and helping the world increase their emotional intelligence and their self-worth and self-esteem and all that important stuff that I think we all need. So I appreciate you. If you're getting value from this show and you want to be a contributing patron, go over to patron.theoverwhelmedbrain.com. I also want to thank John. He used the donate button at theoverwhelmedbrain.com. John wrote, "Thank you for your continuous hard work to produce shows every week. They truly help more than you may know. Thanks." John, I am so grateful for you. Thank you so much for showing your support for the time and energy that we put into the show over here. I come on the air once a week trying to give you the best possible information I can possibly give you. Sometimes I have challenges like today. Today was a challenge, and I do have something that I'll add to it in a moment. But thank you so much, John. I appreciate you. And thank you to everyone that contributes to the show in any way. If you're using the Amazon button at theoverwhelmedbrain.com, that's a big help. And anyone who's donated or is part of the patron program, thank you again. I'm also going to thank a couple iTunes reviewers. One person used the iTunes handle, "There are no nicknames left." That was the handle. This person said, "Thank you for giving us the gift, those who have no one to turn to. I feel like I found a friend when I had none. Forever grateful." I am grateful for you. Thank you so much. There are no nicknames left. I get it. iTunes has a zillion users, so it's hard to find anything that's not used yet. So I appreciate you. Thank you for that review. And then this other person who gave me a review in iTunes wasn't that favorable. This handle is CCCCJJ, I think. And they said, "Gave the podcast a go. Found it took 40 minutes to get to the last 15 minutes of actually relating to the title." That's all they said. Well, I appreciate that feedback, and you're right. It's a wordy show. However, what's funny is that I hear from some people that say, I've listened to this episode 4 times, and I'm going to listen to it again. And so there are some people who appreciate all of the content that I put in there, and then there are some people that only want what specifically they're looking for. And I try to cater to all, and if it takes a little while to get to that specific part, I'm sorry. At the same time, I hope you get some value from the whole episode along the way. But I appreciate you for taking the time to review the show. Thank you very much. And let me tell you quick about the Safe Empowerment System for Social Anxiety that gets released pretty soon, hoping December, maybe January, but it is the result of my collaboration with numerous experts on social anxiety and human behavior. And it's an audio system that is broken up into what I call learning pods and mini emergency pods. And these are designed to help you dissolve or diminish your anxiety as soon as it starts. And they're created to be listened to in small, digestible durations. So as soon as you start feeling anxious in any social situation, you slip away from the crowd and play a learning pod or an emergency pod on your phone or MP3 player. And it's designed to help you retrain your brain so that you can learn a more resourceful response other than anxiety. So if you want a system like this, you can get in on the pre-sale of it. It goes on sale for $99, but you can get it today for $69 as of this recording, which is November 23rd, 2018. After it releases, it goes to $99. So if you're interested in something like this, visit theoverwhelmedbrain.com/safe. That's SAFE. That stands for Social Anxiety, Freedom, and Ease. And check it out. It explains more on the website. So if it's something that you're trying to work through in your life with social anxiety, maybe this is perfect for you. TheOverwhelmedBrain.com/safe. And I also mentioned the Mean Workbook in this episode. If you go to loveandabuse.com, that's a 200-point assessment to find out exactly how your relationship fits into the emotional abuse spectrum. So if you are going through some sort of difficult time in your relationship, or it's always difficult, maybe there's something more going on. Maybe there's some sort of control or manipulation or something you just can't describe. The Mean Workbook helps you describe it. It is both a healing and assessment guide for difficult relationships. So if you need to figure what's going on in your relationship, head over to loveandabuse.com and see if that workbook is right for you. And in my closing statement, I'm going to say that today's episode was difficult because I don't know how to give you advice. I mean, like I said, I looked at a lot of articles. I reached out to people to find out exactly what you do with someone who says they're going to kill themselves or hurt themselves. And they use it as a manipulation. They use it as a control tactic. They use your own compassion against you. Like I said, that's emotional abuse. When someone uses your own compassion, kindness, and generosity against you, knowing that you'll feel bad, you'll feel shame, you'll feel guilt. It's basically like someone saying, how can I make this person feel guilty enough to do what I want them to do? I mean, that's a great question, and it is not something that's probably very conscious in some people's minds, like the person who's manipulating or emotionally abusing. They may not think in that way, but that's pretty much, if you were to break down how their thoughts end up at the results they do, it's probably based on that thought process. So the idea of how can I make that person feel guilty to do what I want so that they are under my control, so that they will continue doing what I want, so that they won't leave me, so that they'll, quote, love me, because that's not love. Love is when you support each other's happiness. Love is when you are kind and caring and generous to each other, not wanting to control the other person, but actually wanting the other person to have a happy life and hopefully share it with you. That's love, at least parts of it. That's components of love. But love is not wanting to manipulate the other person in order to do what you want them to do. I mean, I'm not fully innocent of this. When I was married, I expressed, quote, love in a way that was manipulative. You know, I wasn't all bad. I talk about my marriage as if I was the biggest jerk on the earth, but in some ways I was. In some ways I manipulated my wife so that she would feel bad, so that she would feel guilty, so that she would do what I want. And to heal from the way I was in that relationship, it took a lot. It took big steps out of who I was. It's even embarrassing to tell you this because I don't want you to think any less of me. There's that people pleaser kicking in. I don't want you to think I'm a bad person. Like, I'm not that person anymore. But all I can do is tell you who I was then, what kind of behavior I had that I did to her then, what I wasn't proud of, what I regret, and hopefully you get something from it. Hopefully you can see that kind of behavior is not conducive to a long-lasting, happy relationship. And just in case you don't know the story, what I did in my marriage was that I was not satisfied with my wife's choice of food. So she would eat a lot of junk food, or that was my opinion and perception, that she would eat a lot of junk food, and I was not happy with that because I feared that she would gain weight and get ugly, and then I would be with this person that I committed to that I didn't want to be with anymore. And it was all about me and my needs and what I wanted, and I wanted to control everything that she did. And of course, in that type of scenario, the more control I exerted, the more she felt repressed, and the more she felt guilty because she wasn't doing what her husband wanted her to do. And because she felt guilty and she was an emotional eater, guess what she did? She ate more. She ate more food that I didn't want her to eat. And I just kept coming at her forward and even passively aggressive and assertive in ways that weren't healthy and certainly not supportive of her. And the more I did that, the more she did things I didn't want her to do, until she finally had enough, and her breaking point was getting depressed, losing all passion for living and life. I mean, she wasn't threatening to kill herself, but she was losing her spark. And because she was losing her spark, she sat on the couch a lot. She stopped wanting to do things. And it just got worse and worse over the last 2 years that we were together. And I just thought it was her. Like, what's her problem? Not realizing, not pointing the finger at me, thinking, I'm the one oppressing her. I'm the one stifling her. I'm the one who's supposed to be supporting her, no matter what. Because I believe when you're with someone, you support them, even if you don't necessarily agree with what they're doing. Now, let me clear that up and explain that for a little bit. I didn't necessarily think that it was healthy to eat the way she did, but who am I to judge what she eats? Because if I have a problem with it, then I need to assess my own values in a relationship and ask myself if I want to be with someone who doesn't necessarily align with the way I want to live my life. Because that's what it comes down to, is that some of us will want to, instead of accept the person that we're with, we will instead want to control the person we're with. Because if we control them, then we'll be happy. And that was my mistake. I wanted to control her so I could be happy. And it took her saying, I want a divorce, for me to realize, oh my God, all of this time I've been wanting to control her, not supporting her path, not supporting her happiness. If she thought she had a problem with eating, then she should deal with that in her way, get her own help. I wasn't the one who's supposed to heal her. I'm not the one who's supposed to make her feel bad for having that issue. I wasn't the one who was supposed to, I mean, no one's supposed to do that, but I wasn't the one who's supposed to make her change. I shouldn't be that person. I'm not her psychiatrist. I'm not her personal trainer. I'm not any of those things. I was supposed to be her supportive partner in an equal relationship that supported the person I was with, that wanted the person I was with to be happy. That was my role. And in order to bring the best version of yourself into a relationship, how can you possibly do that when you're so focused on the other person and wanting them to change and wanting to control them? You can't. You cannot bring the best version of yourself when you're focused on the other person wanting to change. So even if they're doing something that's extremely destructive, they're doing lines of coke, they're binging on alcohol every night, they're just doing all this destructive stuff and you can't stand it, are you bringing the best version of yourself into the relationship? Not that I'm comparing you to them, but if you have a partner that's doing all this destructive stuff, you need to ask yourself if this is in alignment with what you value in a relationship. Because if it isn't, it's not their responsibility to change for you. It's your responsibility to make the choice if you want to be in that relationship or not. It doesn't mean you automatically leave. It just means you speak up and you say, look, I don't like your behavior. It's really destructive. I think you're going to die if you keep doing this behavior. And I don't want to continue going down this path with you if you're going to continue destroying yourself. I mean, that might be something you say. And they may say, well, I have a problem and I don't know how to fix the problem. If you leave me, you're not supportive. They may say all of that, which are control mechanisms to have power over you, which you bring it right back to yourself and you say, look, this is what I want in a relationship. If you can't meet that, then I'm leaving. And no matter what they say to try to make you feel bad about doing that, always bring it back to yourself and ask yourself, what's best for me? What's best for me? And then secondarily, what's best for them? Because what's best for them may be you not being there. Even though they say what's best for them is you being there, maybe they'll say that. But what's best for them may not be you being there, because by you being there, it enables their bad behavior. I've said that on other episodes, but it's vital that it's understood that when you stay with someone who has destructive dysfunction, is emotionally abusive, is hurting you in some way, that by you being who you are and showing them that there is an unacceptable behavior and you won't tolerate it and you may actually leave, it empowers them to make the choice to stop that behavior or not. That's how you empower someone who has very destructive behavior. Doesn't mean it's always going to work out for the best. Yes, there are people that will threaten to kill themselves and actually follow through with it, but that's not on you. It's on them. We don't take responsibility for other people's responsibility for themselves. You don't have to take responsibility for someone else's choices. And if you want to take a little responsibility, when they make threats like that, you call someone, you call a professional, you call an authority, and you say, okay, if you're going to threaten to kill yourself, then you need help. And I'm going to call you because I care about you and I want to help you. But if you let it go and think, wow, if I leave, they'll kill themselves, I better stay, then what you're doing is enabling their continuous bad behavior, enabling their continuous emotional abuse, in this case, emotional abuse, and enabling your own incremental depressive state. And I don't want that for you. I'm kind of speaking at Barbara from the second segment, and I'm kind of speaking at you if you are in any of this type of situation or have been or will ever face it. Don't make yourself responsible for someone else's decisions. I did that for too long in my marriage. My marriage went south because of that, and I absolutely made someone who was caring, kind, lovable, generous, and compassionate into a sad, depressed, passionless lump that sat on the couch. I mean, I take 90% responsibility for that because she still had choices. She should have left me. She really should have. She should have said, look, I can eat anything I want. If you have a problem with it, you should leave. That should have been her response. That would have straightened me right up. I would have been like, oh, she's serious. Okay, I better get some help then because I don't want to lose this relationship. That would have been a great response. But it went down that road, and it had to go down that road. Some of these things just have to play out the way they need to play out so that you can reach some sort of breaking point. She reached her breaking point. It was hard, it was painful, and it was perfect. And sometimes that's just the way it has to happen. For Barbara in the second segment, it might have to reach that breaking point before she makes a decision that she never would have made had she not made the breaking point. I mean, she said that she doesn't have any money, she doesn't have a job, she doesn't have a car, I think, and now she feels stuck. But I tell you what, when you reach that breaking point and you say, I can't take this anymore, that's it. When you say that's it and you mean it, you find a way. You find a way to make things happen. You work things out. And the second thing, when you're focused, people show up. People come out of the woodwork to help you because you're so focused and determined that you will make things happen. Always remember that you can make things happen. It just sometimes takes that breaking point where you reach that breakdown before the breakthrough so that you have the tenacity and the motivation and the extreme unwavering passion that you might need to do what you need to do. And if you don't feel it, just keep an open mind so that you can step into your power. This will help you be firm in your decisions and actions. Always take steps to grow and evolve. You are powerful beyond measure. And above all, and this is something I absolutely know to be true about you, you are amazing.